Victor's eyes locked onto Helen's, and there was a coldness in his gaze that sent a shiver down her spine. It wasn't just the kind of gaze someone gives when they are making a proposition, it was the look of someone who knew things, dangerous things, about everyone in the room. His presence was unsettling, as if he were the calm eye in the middle of a violent storm. "Let's cut to the chase, Helen," Victor said, his voice smooth, almost hypnotic. "You think you've won by exposing Patricia's lies, but the truth is much bigger than you realize. You've walked into a situation that goes beyond personal vendettas. People much more powerful than Patricia are watching you now, and they won't hesitate to make you disappear if it suits them." Helen's breath caught in her throat. She had come so far, but now it seemed like the danger was growing, expanding beyond what she could have ever imagined. Was she in over her head? She had always known there were powerful people in the background, pulling the strings, but she never thought they would be directly involved in her life. "I don't understand," she said, trying to steady her voice. "What do you want from me?" Victor's smile remained, but it was an unsettling one, like a predator toying with its prey. "I'm offering you an opportunity. An opportunity to join us. You're a smart woman, Helen. You've got potential. If you stay on the right side, we can protect you, and you can continue your life, your new life, without fear." Helen felt a wave of disgust rise in her chest. He was offering her power, protection, and safety in exchange for her loyalty. It was the same offer Patricia had tried to make before, but now it came with even more terrifying consequences. "I don't want any part of this," she said, shaking her head. "I've been through enough. I've seen the lies, the manipulation, and I'm done. I just want my life back." Victor's expression didn't change. "It's too late for that, Helen. You're in this now, whether you like it or not. The people who back Patricia are only a small part of the equation. There's a network of individuals, business leaders, and politicians who control everything from the shadows. If you think you can walk away from this, you're mistaken. You're already a part of it. There's no going back." The weight of his words hit Helen like a punch to the gut. She could feel her pulse racing. How had it all escalated so quickly? 1 minute she was preparing for her wedding, and now she was being pulled into a dark, dangerous world she never wanted to know. And yet, there was something in Victor's tone, something almost hypnotic, that made it hard to ignore the truth in his words. James stepped forward, his hand gripping Helen's tightly. "You don't have to do this, Helen. We've already exposed the truth. We can go to the authorities, go public. We can make sure Patricia and Alex can't hurt anyone else." Victor turned his gaze on James, and the change in his demeanor was instant. "James, isn't it? You think you can stand against me and my people? You have no idea who you're dealing with. You're out of your league." Helen could feel James's grip tighten as he bristled at the threat, but he didn't back down. "I know enough to know that we don't need to fear you. We have the truth, and that's all we need." Victor laughed, but it wasn't a light-hearted sound. It was dark, foreboding. "You're naive, James. You're both naive if you think this is just about the truth. There are powers at play here that you never understand. You can't fight a system this big." Helen's heart pounded. Was this how it was going to end? Caught between the people who had controlled her life and the lies she was trying to escape. She wasn't sure how much more of this she could take. The room felt suffocating, and for a moment, she felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her. Should she just accept Victor's offer? Should she try to protect herself in this twisted world, or should she continue to fight? But as the thoughts raced through her mind, another sound interrupted the tension in the room, the sound of a phone ringing. Helen jumped, the sudden noise cutting through the thick atmosphere. It was hers. She glanced at the screen, and the name on the caller ID made her blood run cold. "Mom." Victor noticed the hesitation in her eyes, his expression shifting slightly. "It seems someone else wants to join the conversation." "Answer it, Helen. Let's see what they have to say." Helen hesitated, but she knew she couldn't ignore it. She pressed the green button and held the phone to her ear. "Hello? Helen, baby, where are you? I've been trying to reach you," her mother's voice crackled through the phone. There was panic in her tone. "Mom, what's wrong?" Helen's mind raced. What could have happened now? "There's something you need to know," her mother said urgently. "It's about James and his family. You need to be careful. They're not who you think they are." Helen's heart skipped a beat. James's family. What did she mean by that? Before she could respond, her mother's voice dropped to a whisper. "They're involved in something dangerous, Helen. I didn't want to tell you, but you need to know the truth before it's too late." Helen's breath caught in her throat. Was this the truth Victor had been talking about? Was James part of the game she had been trying to escape? She turned to James, who had been watching her intently. His expression was unreadable, and she could see the tension in his jaw. "Mom, I don't," Helen began, but the line went dead. The sudden silence in the room was deafening. Helen stared at the phone, her mind racing. What was her mother trying to warn her about? Was there more to James's family than she had ever realized? Victor's voice broke the silence. "Seems like you've got a lot more to think about now, Helen. The truth is always more complicated than you think." And with that, the walls seemed to close in around her once again. The game had just shifted, and now Helen wasn't sure who she could trust anymore. Closed. Helen's fingers gripped the phone tighter, as if the device could somehow ground her. She tried to steady her breathing, to push the panic down. "Focus, Helen. Focus. Why are you telling me all this?" she demanded, her voice shaking despite her best efforts to sound strong. "What do you want from me?" Victor's smirk deepened. "I don't want anything from you, Helen. I'm just giving you a choice. You can join us, help us control the situation, and you'll be protected. Or you can keep fighting, but I promise, the consequences won't be pretty." Her thoughts swirled like a storm, and she glanced at James, hoping to find some sign that he could explain the situation. But his face remained unreadable, his jaw clenched in a way that told her he was hiding something. Something important. "James," she said, her voice soft but filled with desperation. "What's going on? Is it true? Is your family involved in this?" James's eyes flickered with something, guilt, maybe. For a moment, it looked like he was about to say something, but then he looked away, his gaze falling to the floor. He didn't answer. The silence between them stretched painfully long, and Helen felt her heart drop. The man she had trusted, the man she had been ready to marry, was now standing there, silent, withholding information that could change everything. Victor noticed her distress, and his smile widened, knowing exactly what was happening. "You see? The people you think you can trust are the ones who will hurt you the most. That's the game we play. Welcome to it." The words stung like a slap, but Helen refused to let Victor see the fear in her eyes. She would not be his pawn. She would not let this man, or any of them, control her. No matter what James's family had been involved in, no matter how deep the corruption ran, Helen wasn't backing down. She had already come too far. Turning to James, she felt the last shreds of her trust in him unravel. "I need you to tell me the truth. Now. I can't keep doing this with secrets between us. I can't fight Patricia and Victor alone. So if you're in this too, if you've been hiding something from me, you need to say it now." James looked at her, his eyes filled with pain and regret. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Instead, he ran a hand through his hair, the weight of whatever he was carrying too much for him to speak. Helen's heart shattered. She had trusted him with everything, and now, in her most vulnerable moment, he couldn't even be honest with her. She felt betrayed, more than ever. She didn't know how much longer she could keep this fight going, especially with James, the person she thought she could rely on, standing in silence beside her. Victor, sensing her growing frustration, spoke again, his voice low and almost comforting. "This is what I mean, Helen. Your whole life has been built on lies and deception. And now, you have a choice. Join us, and we can make all of this go away. You can still have everything you want, a life of comfort and power. Or you can keep pushing, but know that there's no coming back from it. Helen's hands trembled as she thought about the life she had always imagined, her wedding, her future with James. But could she really continue down this path? Could she accept that the man she loved was somehow tangled in this dangerous world, a part of a system that had no place for her? She couldn't be a part of this. Not anymore. Why should I trust you? She asked, her voice fierce, her determination growing. You've already shown me who you are. And I'm not interested in joining your game. You might have power, but you won't take mine. Not without a fight. Victor's smile faltered for the briefest moment, but then he nodded slowly, as if acknowledging her resolve. I admire your spirit, Helen. But don't think for a second that this is over. You've made your choice, but so have I. And if you think you can walk away without consequences, you're gravely mistaken. Helen turned away from him, feeling her pulse quicken, her body on edge. She had made her decision. She would fight. But the price of her defiance was already becoming clear. She walked toward the door, her legs shaky but determined. James didn't try to stop her. In fact, he didn't even move. And that hurt more than anything. As she stepped out into the hallway, the weight of the situation bore down on her. What now? Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from her mother. Helen, listen to me. I've made some calls. There's more to James's family than you know. Please be careful. They're more involved in this than you think. Don't trust anyone right now. Her mother's warning sent a chill through her. What had she gotten herself into? And how much deeper did this go? Helen felt the walls closing in again, but she couldn't turn back. There was no going back now. Victor was right about one thing, the game had changed. Helen's heart raced as she stood there, staring at her phone. Her mother's message felt like a slap across the face. More involved than you think. What could that mean? James's family, what had she missed? How had she been so blind to all of this? She needed answers, and she needed them fast. But every step she took in trying to get to the truth only seemed to drag her deeper into a world she never intended to be a part of. She had to get away from this, now, before things escalated any further. But as Helen started to walk down the hall, ready to leave the building, she was stopped by a familiar voice. Where are you going, Helen? It was James. His voice was softer now, less defensive, but still laced with an edge of something she couldn't quite place. Helen turned to face him, trying to steady her emotions. I don't know anymore, James. I honestly don't know. He looked at her for a long moment, and for the first time, she saw the vulnerability in his eyes. It was almost as if he were pleading with her. Helen, please. Don't walk away from me now. I can explain everything. Just give me a chance. Helen shook her head, her frustration boiling over. I've given you plenty of chances, James. But every time I do, you hide something. You're hiding something huge, and I can't keep pretending I don't see it. My whole life is being turned upside down, and I have no idea who I can trust. His expression faltered, guilt written all over his face. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want any of this to come out this way. I didn't ask for any of this. Helen snapped, her voice shaking. I didn't ask to get dragged into a world of lies, deceit, and this. She motioned between them, her hands trembling with the weight of it all. You're telling me now that you're involved in all of this, but where were you when I needed you? Where were you when I trusted you with everything? James stepped closer, his voice a whisper now, desperate. I didn't want you to know. I didn't want you to get involved. It's not just my family, Helen. There are people who will stop at nothing to keep their secrets hidden. And if you keep digging, you're going to get hurt. Helen felt a sinking feeling in her chest. Was this just another attempt to keep her in the dark, to make her feel powerless? So what? You want me to stay quiet? You want me to just pretend like everything's okay and let you and your family continue with whatever dangerous game you're playing? No, James whispered, reaching for her hand. I just want to keep you safe. You don't understand the level of danger we're dealing with. It's bigger than both of us. But you don't have to be a part of it. Helen pulled her hand away, stepping back. It's too late for that. I'm already in this now. And you can't protect me, James. You've already proven that. There was a long pause, the silence between them thick with unspoken words. James looked like he wanted to say something, but he just stood there, looking defeated. Helen's phone buzzed again, and her heart skipped a beat when she saw the name on the screen. It was her mother again. Helen, I have more information. You need to listen. Don't trust James. His family is connected to something much darker. Please, I'm begging you to be careful. The message made her stomach churn. How could her mother know all of this? Had she been keeping secrets too? Was her mother involved in this somehow? Her thoughts raced, but there was no time to figure it all out. There was something bigger at play here, something that had been carefully hidden, and it was all coming to light now. Helen turned away from James, her decision made. I have to go, James. I can't stay here. No, Helen, wait. His voice cracked with emotion, but she didn't turn back. She couldn't. Her footsteps echoed as she walked away from him, from the mess of lies and betrayal that had consumed her life. She needed space. She needed to think. As Helen made her way down the stairs and out of the building, the weight of her choices hit her harder than ever. She wasn't sure where she was going, but she knew one thing for sure: she had to find the truth. No matter what it took, she had to uncover the secrets that had been hidden from her. But the question lingered in her mind as she stepped out into the cool night air: who could she trust now? The phone buzzed again. Her pulse quickened when she saw the name on the screen. It was Victor. You can't run from this, Helen. The game's just started, and you're already a player. You have two choices. Come to me, and I'll help you navigate this world. Or stay in the dark, and the consequences will be much worse than you can imagine. Helen's hands clenched into fists. She had no intention of falling into Victor's trap, no matter how enticing his offer might sound. But she had to admit she was scared. Scared of what he and his people might do. Scared of what her own mother had warned her about. But even more, she was scared of the truth. What if everything she thought she knew was a lie? What if she had been living in a world of falsehoods, trusting the wrong people? There was only one way to find out. With a deep breath, Helen turned the phone off and shoved it into her pocket. She wasn't going to let fear control her anymore. She was going to face this head-on. Helen stood in the middle of the bustling street, the sounds of traffic and the murmur of voices around her doing little to calm the storm inside her. The weight of everything she'd learned, everything she was still learning, was crushing her. She felt like a pawn in a game she didn't understand, and she wasn't sure if she could trust anyone anymore. She pulled her coat tighter around her body, seeking some semblance of comfort, though it was hard to find. The city felt different now. There was a strange coldness to it, something lacking in the shadows. And she knew it wasn't just the weather. It was everything that had come to light in the past few days. The lies, the secrets, and the faces that had once seemed so familiar now seemed like masks. Her phone buzzed again, breaking her train of thought. This time, it was a message from her best friend, Laura. Helen, I've been trying to reach you. Call me. It's urgent. Helen hesitated, her mind racing. Laura had always been there for her. But was she really safe talking to anyone anymore? Was it possible that even her closest friends had been in on whatever James's family had been hiding? Still, she needed answers. And Laura had always been honest with her. Maybe she knew something. With trembling hands, Helen dialed her friend's number. The phone rang for a few seconds before Laura picked up. Helen. Oh my God, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you all day. I've been dealing with some things, Helen said, trying to keep her voice steady. She could feel the tension building in her chest, but she pushed it down. What's going on? Why did you want to talk to me? There was a pause on the other end, and Helen's heart skipped a beat. Laura. What is it? I don't know how to say this, but I found something. Something I think you need to see. It's about James and his family. Helen felt a sudden jolt of panic. What about James? It's not just him, Helen. It's his whole family. They're involved in things you wouldn't even believe. I think they've been hiding a lot more than you know. Laura's voice was shaky, her words coming faster now. Helen, this is big. Dangerous. I don't know what to do, but I can't just keep this from you. Helen's head spun. More secrets. More lies. Her trust in everyone around her was slipping away, and the idea of confronting James, of confronting her whole life, felt overwhelming. Laura, what exactly are you saying? What do you know? Her voice cracked, but she couldn't stop herself. I need to know everything. Please. I can't keep living like this, not knowing what's real and what's fake. There was another pause, longer this time, before Laura spoke again. I don't know how deep this goes, Helen. But I found some files, documents, phone records, things that don't add up. I tried to destroy them, but I don't think I was careful enough. I think they might have seen it. I'm scared, Helen. They know I know something. Helen's stomach twisted into knots. Who knows? Victor, Laura whispered. I think Victor's been watching me. And now that I know what he's involved in, I'm in trouble too. Victor. The name hit Helen like a punch to the gut. It was always him, wasn't it? The man who had seemed so charming, so in control, had been pulling the strings behind everything. And now, Laura was caught in his web. Helen's heart pounded in her chest as she took a deep breath. Laura, listen to me. You have to get out of town. Get as far away as you can. This isn't just about us anymore. This is bigger than we both thought. But Helen. No, Laura. Please, just listen to me. I'm going to take care of this. You stay safe, okay? I handle Victor and his family. But you have to trust me, and you have to leave right now. Helen's mind raced with plans, but at the same time, a part of her felt completely helpless. How could she fight someone like Victor? How could she take on James's family, a family that had been hiding so much for so long? And even if she could, who would she turn to for help? She couldn't trust anyone. I'll get in touch with you as soon as I can, Helen said, her voice more determined now. But for now, just go. Don't take any risks. I will. I trust you, Helen. Be careful. And don't trust anyone, not even James. The line went dead. Helen stood there for a moment, the phone pressed against her ear, trying to absorb everything Laura had just told her. It was like a bad dream, one that she couldn't wake up from. But she couldn't afford to waste time. Victor was dangerous, and now he knew Laura had uncovered something. There was no telling how far he would go to protect his secrets. She had to move quickly, but she had no idea where to start. The first thing, she realized, was to confront James. She needed the truth from him. She needed him to open up and tell her everything, no more lies, no more games. Her mind made up, Helen walked to the nearest taxi stand, her footsteps heavy but purposeful. She couldn't let herself fall apart, not yet. She had a plan, and for the first time in days, it felt like she might be in control again. But as she stepped into the cab, a sense of dread washed over her. She had no idea what she was walking into, or how far this would go. All she knew was that the truth was out there. And she was going to find it. No matter what it cost her. Helen's heart raced as the taxi sped through the darkening streets of the city. Her mind was a whirlpool of thoughts, each more troubling than the last. As the car turned the corner toward James's apartment, she felt the weight of everything pressing on her. She was no longer just a woman about to marry the man of her dreams, she was someone caught in the middle of a web of lies, secrets, and danger. And now, it was all coming to a head. The taxi screeched to a stop in front of the building, and Helen's nerves tightened. She paid the driver quickly, her hands shaking slightly. As she stepped out, the night air was cool against her skin, but she didn't feel the chill. All she could think about was James, and the conversation they were about to have. She moved quickly to the entrance, her footsteps echoing in the otherwise quiet lobby. The security guard at the desk barely looked up as she entered, but Helen didn't care. She had no time for small talk or pleasantries. She had to get to James, and she had to get answers, now. She took the elevator to his floor, her thoughts spiraling faster with every passing second. What would he say? Would he try to lie to her again? Or would he finally confess everything? The questions felt like a million knives stabbing at her mind, each one sharper than the last. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding, and Helen stepped out. She walked down the hallway to James's apartment, each step heavy with the weight of what was about to unfold. She stood in front of his door, her hand hovering over the knocker. She hesitated, just for a moment. The knot in her stomach tightened, but she pushed it aside. No more running. No more pretending everything was fine. She knocked. The door opened almost immediately, and James stood in front of her, looking every bit as composed as he always did. But there was something different in his eyes, a flicker of something she couldn't quite place. Guilt. Fear. It was hard to tell. Helen, he said softly, his voice almost too calm. What are you doing here? I need to talk to you, she replied, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. Now. James stepped back, opening the door wider. Come in. Helen walked past him, her eyes scanning the apartment. It was the same as it always had been, clean, organized, familiar. But now, everything felt foreign. She turned to face him, taking a deep breath. We need to have an honest conversation, James, she began, her voice firm. About everything. James closed the door behind him, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. I don't know what you mean, Helen. Everything's fine. We're getting married in a week, remember? Helen's pulse quickened. No, James. Everything's not fine. I know what's been going on. I know what you've been hiding from me. I know about your family, and I know about Victor. At the mention of Victor's name, James's face went pale. His eyes widened slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. What are you talking about? His voice was strained now, but he was trying hard to mask his panic. I'm not stupid, James, Helen snapped. I've been piecing things together. My mother knows about you, about your family. She's been trying to warn me. Laura knows too. And now, I know everything. You can't keep lying to me. James was silent for a moment, and then he exhaled deeply. His shoulders slumped, and the mask he had been wearing finally cracked. Helen, I didn't want you to be a part of this. I never wanted you to know. Know what? Helen demanded, her voice trembling now. What's going on, James? What is this that you've been hiding from me? He ran a hand through his hair, clearly conflicted. Helen, you don't understand. This isn't something you can just walk away from. I should have told you everything a long time ago, but I was trying to protect you. Trying to protect us. Helen took a step forward, her voice soft but determined. Protect us from what, James? From the truth. His eyes were filled with pain, but there was something else, something darker behind them. It's not that simple. You don't know who Victor is. You don't know what he's capable of. He's not just some businessman. He's dangerous. His family is involved in things that go beyond anything you can imagine. Helen's mind reeled. What kind of things, James? James took a deep breath, and for the first time, he looked completely vulnerable. Helen, Victor, and my family, they've been involved in illegal activities for years. Drugs, money laundering, blackmail, it's all connected. And I've been caught in the middle of it. I never wanted you to get involved. I never wanted you to find out. The words hung in the air like poison, and Helen's head spun. Drugs, money laundering, blackmail. She had always known that James had some ties to powerful people, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. So why didn't you tell me, James? Why keep it from me? Helen asked, her voice cracking with emotion. Why let me get involved in all of this? I was trying to keep you safe, James said, his voice barely above a whisper. But now that you know, there's no turning back. Victor won't let you walk away, Helen. And neither will my family. They'll do anything to keep their secrets hidden. Helen felt her world crumble. She had known that their relationship had been too perfect, too easy. But now, the truth was undeniable. Everything had been a lie. And now, she was tangled in a mess that she didn't know how to escape from. I need to leave, Helen said, her voice shaky. I need to get away from all of this. No, James pleaded, stepping closer. Please don't go. We can fix this. We can find a way out of this together. Helen shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. I don't know if I can trust you anymore, James. I don't know if I can trust anyone. Her heart shattered as she turned and walked toward the door. She had come here to get answers, but now she had more questions than ever. And the answers were only making things worse. She stepped out into the night, her breath coming in shallow gasps, her mind racing with the weight of the truth. She had thought she was marrying the man she loved. But now, she wasn't sure who he really was. And in the darkness ahead, Helen knew that nothing would ever be the same again.